Whenever a new Fire Emblem game comes around, it's always interesting to see what kind of new mechanics the developers will try to throw into the mix. Even though the core rules of Fire Emblem have remained relatively consistent since its first installment, there's always something different in every new game. Awakening brought with it the pair-up feature, which was later perfected in Fates. Echoes had the turn wheel, Three Houses had battalions, and Engage had its emblem rings. Since I've played every single Fire Emblem game in the series, I thought I'd try to come up with 5 new mechanics that I would love to see in a future Fire Emblem game. Let's begin. Number 1. Resolve. One thing that I find severely lacking in Fire Emblem is a way to show how your characters deal with the turmoil and rigors of war. Sure, you have hit points, which indicates a character's overall physical health, but those can be healed up quickly with a staff or vulnerary. Tracia776 tried to implement a mechanic like this by adding fatigue, but I personally would like to see a system that's a bit more interactive than a character just being undeployable for a mission. And so here is my idea for Resolve. If you've played the Darkest Dungeon games, you will already understand where I'm going with this one. Each character will have a resolve meter that goes down when certain things happen on the battlefield. When a character takes a hit, their resolve goes down by a little bit. But when bad things happen, like characters suffering a major critical hit, resolve gets dropped by a lot. Your units can also lose resolve whenever their allies get crit or die, as it is very traumatizing to watch your friends suffer. When this resolve meter reaches 0, a unit's resolve is tested, similar to Darkest Dungeon. You see a close-up of their portrait, and then a myriad of random effects can happen, from various status conditions being inflicted, to temporary stat penalties, to losing control of a character completely and having them try to run away. However, there is also a chance that when a character's resolve is tested, that they fight through it and gain a buff instead. This resolve chance could be based on the character's stats, like their luck or constitution, or maybe a brand new stat can be implemented, similar to Three Houses Charm, a willpower stat if you will, that increases a character's resolve meter, but also reduces their chances to break when they are tested. This mechanic could also interact with other established ones like staves. There could exist special staves that restore a character's resolve instead of their HP, giving your healers another crucial job on the battlefield. Your dancers could be used to do more than just give a character extra actions. They could literally be your army's main resolve healers, restoring resolve to all nearby characters whenever they perform. Certain bosses could have dangerous abilities that affect your playable characters, draining their resolve in an area of effect. And overall, there's just a lot of cool stuff you could do with a mechanic like this. Of course, people generally speaking do not like losing control over their characters, and can feel frustrated when it's essentially up to an RNG roll. And it also adds a rather dangerous snowball effect that punishes players further when bad things are already happening. So I'm not saying it's perfect or that people will enjoy it, just that I think it would be pretty cool to see in a Fire Emblem game. Number 2. Flanking. In many grid-based strategy games, you will generally get some kind of bonus if you manage to attack an enemy from behind, especially if they're already preoccupied with another unit. Triangle Strategy did this masterfully by allowing all flanking characters to perform a follow-up attack every time the unit they were facing got hit, which could quickly snowball your damage output to ludicrous levels, and was incredibly satisfying to watch. While I'm not advocating Fire Emblem do something to this magnitude, it would be nice to see a small bonus whenever you have 2 characters attacking someone from opposite directions. Something as simple as a small bonus to hit and damage would be nice, with certain Thief and Assassin classes maybe having a class skill that greatly increases their crit rate whenever they're making a flanking attack. Overall, I'd love to see more position-based mechanics in Fire Emblem, and I think a flanking bonus would be a really cool mechanic to incorporate. Number 3. Attacks of Opportunity. If you played Dungeons & Dragons, you will be familiar with this mechanic. Attacks of opportunity occur when someone tries to move through a space that is controlled by another hostile character. Effectively, if I have a mercenary and say I want to move it past this soldier will get a free attack on me as I pass through him, though that attack still needs to hit normally and may fail. This is a mechanic that is made to counteract cheesy play, where you just run one of your units through a throng of enemies to attack a squishy healer in the back with no consequences. Some people really like this mechanic in D&D as it rewards positioning and punishes reckless play, while others think it's an overly restrictive mechanic that hampers mobility and slows down the game. I can see both sides of the coin here, but I think that attacks of opportunity could be a cool mechanic in Fire Emblem if implemented in a right way. For example, attacks made this way could receive an innate minus 20% chance to hit, or have their damage halved, making them unlikely to succeed and not super harmful when they do. But some classes that specialize in defense and zone control, like Armor Knights, could have this penalty removed, making them great at defending other healers which is supposed to be their job in the first place. Cavalry, on the other hand, with their great speed and ability to do ride-by attacks, could be less affected by attacks of opportunity, and flying units like Pegasus Knights could avoid them entirely. You could also have archers do something similar to the Overwatch mechanic from XCOM, where they can stand still and focus their attention at a certain area of the map, attacking the first unit to enter their squares. Setting up Overwatch attacks is a very cool mechanic that I greatly enjoyed whenever I played XCOM, and I think it would be cool to do something similar in Fire Emblem. Overall, I just like to see more tools given to the player to reward proper positioning. And while some people may think that Fire Emblem is already complicated enough, I for one think it would be a really cool addition. Number 4. Second Waves. Second Waves are a bunch of really cool mechanics from the XCOM series that allows you to toggle on a bunch of different side effects for your game. These effects can both be helpful and damaging to the player, and some just make the game more chaotic and unpredictable. An example of what a second wave effect can do is randomize all the skills your unit get, which leads to some absolutely hilarious builds. Another one greatly varies the damage output of both your units and the enemies, making a game that is very random, volatile, and dangerous. What I absolutely love about the second wave effects is that they add so much replayability to the game, which is something I feel Fire Emblem has been lacking of late. Here's a few examples of second wave effects that I made up that could be applied to the next Fire Emblem game. Randomized Potential randomly shuffles the growth rates of all playable characters, making them great in some areas and terrible in others. You gain some, you lose some. Every time a character levels up, there's a 50% chance that they will gain 2 stats instead of 1, but there's also a 50% chance that they will lose a stat instead of gaining it. Triangle Madness triples the effects of the weapon triangle, both bonuses and penalties. Frail Weapons. When attacking, there's a 1% chance that a weapon will break, regardless of how much durability it has left. Quantity over Quality doubles the critical hit rate of all units, both playable and enemy, but makes those critical hits only deal 2 times damage instead of 3. Devil's Curse. All units in the game, both players and enemies, suffers from the Devil Axe reversal effect, giving them a 31% minus their luck chance to damage themselves on attacks. These are just a few second wave effects I came up with on the spot. I could literally make hundreds of these with enough time and creativity. And just imagine how much chaos it would be to toggle on every single one of them for a single playthrough of Fire Emblem. A mechanic like this would add so many new fun ways for people to challenge themselves on their consecutive playthroughs, and I'm absolutely baffled that not more strategy games have implemented this mechanic. On a second note, second waves could also be used to add randomizers to the game, or even a self-imposed Iron Man mode where you're not allowed to load saves. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Number 5. Day-Night Cycle. This idea is not mine, but stems from a fake Fire Emblem leak that I covered on this channel many years ago from what is now dubbed Castlevania Emblem. It proposed a really cool mechanic that would center around a day-night cycle in Fire Emblem, where on some outdoor maps, you would have an orb which would show the sun gradually settling and eventually be replaced by a moon. This would affect more than just the atmosphere and aesthetics. During the night, maps would turn into fog of war with reduced vision, and it would also affect certain units differently depending on their classes. In this particular leak, it was theorized that the next Fire Emblem game would include units such as vampires and werewolves, who would be greatly affected by the day-night cycles. Vampires would be much weaker during the day, and during the night they would gain bonus stats and gain the ability to fly as bats, whereas werewolves would transform into their bestial forms and gain massive bonuses to their movement and stats, akin to the Legoose of the Tellius games. The day-night cycle would also interact with certain skills. Luna would have a greater chance to proc and have a stronger effect during the night, whereas Sol would similarly proc more often and be stronger during the day. Some of the stronger characters would also be powerful enough to affect the day-night cycle, being able to summon eclipses, which temporarily turns day into night for a single turn. Furthermore, the main character would have an artifact in their position capable of altering, slowing, or even speeding up the day-night cycle, making it a tool to be exploited by the player. Of course, a day-night gimmick would have several problems. First of all, it basically means that most battles would have to be fought over several days, which could be a problem with the narrative of the story, and it would also have a much smaller impact on indoor maps, where the sun and moon are not visible. Still, I think that if used in a Fire Emblem game where it thematically would make sense, a day-night mechanic would be a really cool addition. I gotta be honest guys, I thought the Castlevania Emblem was a really cool concept, and I was actually very sad when the leaks turned out to be false. So yeah, those are 5 mechanics I would personally love to see in a future Fire Emblem game. Do you agree or disagree with any of these? Or maybe you have some mechanics you want to propose to yourself? Let me hear about them in the comments section below. Leave a like and subscribe for more Fire Emblem content, and thanks to my editor Davis G for putting this video together. My name has been Mengs, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.